Hello, my name is Elias. I collaborated with Lev, and this is a presentation for our app called Emojion, which is a portmanteau of emoji and emotion, which I will explain shortly the reason behind that. So, basically, the idea behind this app is that it would allow us to either upload a photo or take a photo, and then the output would end up being um, the image of the photo, and it would overlay on top of their face an emoji that would correspond to the emotion that their face was showing. Part of the hope behind this was because a lot of these kind of more just entertaining but not necessarily practical apps are fairly popular, and it seemed like the sort of thing that could be fun. It would be, and as we were going through the different web APIs on Microsoft, we noticed the ability to read emotions, and we figured that this could be an entertaining method of utilizing that feature, and wanted to see how we could apply it. So, a few interesting details. So originally, we were looking at this specific API called the Emotion API that we are going to use to actually apply for this app. But unfortunately, it seems like it was in the preview stages still. And so it wasn't actually available for us to fully use and access the API. So instead, we resorted to using the Face API, which luckily actually did still have emotion features. It didn't have it to the same degree. I don't think that it worked for videos, but you could still parse through the JSON, and it would have a list of 8 different types of emotions. I believe it was anger, contempt, disgust, fear, neutral, surprised, sad, and I'm blanking on the last one. But eight different emotions that you could parse through and detect using the Face API. So unfortunately, um, trying to actually make this uh, app work has been a bit of a challenge. So here's a little bit of a list, though, of what were the things that we did. So Lev, he was worked on primarily implementing the tutorial. The tutorial that we're referencing is that Microsoft was very helpful in that with the API actually listed kind of how to go through and actually implement a very basic setup for the app for the API using the API. It was different than what we were going to be using. We took a few steps farther, but it was definitely helpful to gain a really solid understanding of the background on how to use the API and what that would look like for our app. Um, so he worked on implementing that tutorial as well as picking out like the different emojis and choosing which one would correspond to which emotion. I worked on actually finding the API, and then I did a lot of the debugging work while we also worked together then developing the UI and implementing our methods. So at this point, um, at the stage that we're at, unfortunately, the app itself is not running the way that we would like it to be. Um, so if we had more time, we'd be able to kind of work on some more of the debugging, try to figure out what are the issues that are happening. So because unfortunately, at this stage, the actual strangely enough, the part that's not working right now actually comes from the tutorial, which is the part where it's actually uh, accessing the API and detecting the face. As far as we can tell, we've gone through all the documentation as far as how these different functions are worked, checked out the different classes, and for some reason we're getting a null return from one of the functions, which doesn't make a lot of sense. So that's something that hopefully, if we wanted to spend more time with beyond the actual final project due date, we could maybe end up figuring out what the issue is with that and be able to actually get get the app to work correctly. So at this stage right now, what ends up happening is you start up the app It'll run. You'll be able to choose an image from uh, the images that you have stored on your phone, and it'll display it. But beyond that, it doesn't seem like the actual API work seems to be happening. So the first thing that we would want to be doing for the future is we want to fix the API call. Um, so another fun feature that we could do is we could have a larger emoji selection, because right now what we're doing is that for each emotion we have a specific emoji set aside, and we are calling the URL for that emoji, for the link to that emoji, converting that to a bitmap and then displaying that. Or at least that's what would happen if we were able to be accessing the API and detect the emotion correctly. Potentially another option for that is that we'd have several different types of emojis corresponding to, different types of phones, because you can get different emoji selections for different phones. You could have, we could potentially randomize what emoji ends up appearing. A couple of other options such as that. Yeah, and I mean, I think other important features would be being able to um, actually like save the image and share that, make it more interconnected with other social media apps. Also, one of the things that we didn't have enough time to be able to do uh, during this project, but um, currently the idea is that like you'd submit a photo, the API would detect the face. It would we parse through the data, the JSON. We'd convert the information that we get from the face in the API, convert it to a JSON, parse through it, find the emotion that's highest represented for that face, and then right now we're just displaying that particular emoji corresponding to it. Luckily, the Face API actually provides information as to where the face is located. So, theoretically, another option that we could do is we could actually take the emoji, resize it to whatever the size of the face is, the dimensions that it is in the image, and actually place the emoji over the face, which we think could be substantially more entertaining, more engaging, something that people would be more interested in actually potentially purchasing and being able to like share with friends, and uh, yeah, just having that more personal application for it. Again, something that we didn't have time to implement, but uh, assuming that we were able to actually fix the API call and are able to actually access all that data, hopefully it wouldn't actually take that much extra work to be able to utilize that information and apply it to placing the emoji in the correct location. So that's where we're at this point. I hope you find this engaging. We'll see whether or not we actually continue working on this in the future. If we do, it's definitely the sort of thing that I feel like could potentially be marketable. Probably not for like actually paying for the app necessarily, but the sort of thing that could be a free download that runs ads or something like that. Yeah, thank you.